standardizer transformation. So standardizer transformation will be used in order to convert n number of abbreviations or transpositions or misspellings to one unique representation of data, which we call what? Standardization. Yeah? That will be accomplished by using what we call this data stage. Yeah? So that's what we are going to what we call discuss now. Yeah. So once we do that, the next step is going to be what? We need to start getting into what we call like how we are going to perform this over here. Yeah. Let us start doing that. Yeah. So here the first and foremost thing is what we need to know, like how to obtain the data, which is here LA customers flat file data. Then start identifying like what to be standardized, either company or address standardization or city standardization, state code standardization, whatever. And then once we know that, we need to have what we call the reference data, which we need to think of. Where do we define that? That reference data will be defined within what we call admin console, analyst tool, remember. So analyst tool will be used, or informatic analyst tool will be used in order to define the reference data by using the reference table manager. Yeah? Log on to this particular client and start what we call supplying, what we call building the reference data over here, and then and make use of that reference data within the standardizer transformation. Yeah? So let it come up so that we can start what I call creation of reference data from a scratch. Yeah? How do you do that? Select any project which we are interested in and then get into what we call any folder, and there is a button on the right side. Can you see here where we have new reference table? So you can click on that in order to create the reference data. Remember, in order to define the reference data, we have to have deeper expertise on data and also with the business. So which means business analysts or subject matter experts or information analysts, they are the right people who can come up with what we call the reference data. Now this environment, which we call reference table manager environment, which is going to help us on creation of this reference data. Remember, first and foremost thing is what? Use the reference table editor in order to create the reference data from a scratch, where we can build reference data by building the metadata and then followed by content or data associated to each metadata element. Yeah? Let us say we have ref table, yeah? And then let us say September. Then in case if you want to supply default value, we can supply, but it is an optional thing. Now, middle pane will contain what? Column attributes, where we can start adding any number of columns. Can you see here where we have add new column button, where we can start building any number of columns, and one of them, which means out of n number of columns, one of the column can be made as what? Valid column. Yeah? And then add one more column, which is going to be the what I call normal reference data column. And similarly, we can add any number of columns where we are going to use all these columns in order to build the reference data from scratch. Yeah? And then audit note. So this audit note will be used in order to keep track of who created this particular metadata and who modified this particular metadata, or who deleted the metadata. Which means what? All metadata operations with respect to changes, all of them will be tracked by using audit note. Yeah? So creation of what I call meta or columns. Yeah? Let us say. Yeah? Now, any change that you want to do, or if you want to move up or down these columns, right? You can select any column and bring it up or bring it down. We have up and down arrows which will be used to move up and down of these columns. Apart from that, in case if you want to build this row level description, we can do that, but it is optional. If you want, you can do that, or else it's not. Now click on finish. So with this particular what I call reference table, what I call we can build with a different name. So with this particular configuration, we could create a reference table with only metadata, remember. Yeah? But once we do that, next step is going to be what? We need to start creation of what I call the data for each metadata element. That is where second part of reference table would come in, which I am going to explain now. Yeah? Yeah. Now this is done. Now this environment is ready to add a content and data to an existing table, which is metadata table. Yeah? Now you can click on this, or on the right side you can see add row button, right? On the right top, and then edit row button. Yeah, second one, and third is what? Delete row, which means in case if you want to delete the existing rows which was created, we can use delete button over here. Yeah? Now customer tier values, let us say we have diamond. Yeah? And input data could be in different forms. Yeah? Let's say diamond 1 or diamond or whatever. Let us say in case if you get this kind of probable or different misspellings or different combinations of representations of data, then what we could do is we can replace this kind of data with what I call dia. So because we considered CT, which is the first column, as valid column data. Once we do that, say OK, so that it will be saved onto the reference table. Similarly, we can add any number of rows. You can also use add row button now. I'm just using different way to add a new row within the reference table. For that, click on add row and supply what I call customer tier values can also be expressed in terms of digits. In case if you get values like this, yeah, which means what customer tier, what yeah, tier digits. Yeah. Some people will follow representing the data in the form of digits, right? Each customer tier will be identified by using a digit. Yeah? Now we have added one more row based on the digits. Likewise, depending upon the expectations of data, we can add any number of rows within this particular reference table manager. Yeah? So similarly, we can add let's say one more row which will be used for deletion purpose. Let us say gold, yeah, and gold or GLOD example. Yeah? This is a misspelling part, right? In case if we have this kind of misspelling also, it would be replaced with what 44 whatever. Yeah? So likewise, you can build any number of rows within this. And in case if you want to modify, you can double click or modify, or there is an edit row button which will be used. Can you see here? Select rows to be edited. So we need to select this and click on edit button where you can see these values. Yeah? So modifying the existing data. Yeah? So that is what we do here. Yeah? So then say, let us instead of 4, I'll put 4. 44 instead of 44, we are putting here 4. And say apply and close. Can you see here? Change has been reflected. Which means we can select existing row and get it modified. Similarly, if you want to delete, then last button, which is straightforward. Select and say, can you see here? Are you sure you want to delete the row? And reason for what it called deletion or audit note. Like why we are deleting this particular record. You can specify this. Or else it's an opt. Or else you can just ignore that. Plus, we also have edit table, which means we created a reference table, right, by having n number of columns, right? So here, in case if you want to, what it call change existing metadata, like from this particular type to big int or whatever, any other type or any other column, yeah. If you want to do that, you can always do that by modifying it and then say, okay. So this is what we call modifying the existing metadata. Yeah. So this is what would be done within this what we call a reference data. Yeah. Now we know like how to create a reference table, how to populate data to the reference table. So both of them we have discussed from scratch using one of the option of creation of reference table. We have 3 options, right? Out of them we have used only one, which is what? Import, not import, create using a reference table editor. That's what we did. Now there is one more button here, which is what? Find and replace. Let us say you have many rows of data within this reference table. Now you want to what you call perform bulk changes. Yeah. Answer is no, Gopi. So which means what, in case if you want to modify what I call the values in a bulk way, how do you do that? Which means what? Let us replace all the diamonds or all the diamond 1 with something else. How do you do that? So that will be done by supplying here. Let's say diamond 1 replace with, let us say, diamond 2. So wherever there is a diamond on all the rows, remember, so which means this particular option is applicable for what? To perform bulk operation for all the rows. Then say what I call either replace all, which means replace all occurrences, or highlight all. Can you see here? We have only one row, one column where we have this data, and perform next. So there is no data here. Yeah, cannot find diamond 1. You'll get it. Now if you want to replace, we can perform, or if you can click on replace all of them will be replaced. Yeah? Replaced with what? With a bulk operation. Yeah? So which is what you will see, and then say okay. So this is what would be done as part of find and replace. That's it. No? So that's about what I call different what I call tasks that would be performed against with the data. Yeah? And now the next is what? Where do we see this kind of metadata and data changes? Which means like who has done what with respect to creation of metadata, modification of metadata, or deletion of metadata. And second, addition of a new row or modifying the existing row or rows, and deletion of existing rows or performing bulk operation. Where do we see all such what I call changes, so that we can keep track of who has done what? That is where we have what? Audit trail. This functionality will be used in order to keep track of who has done what. Remember. Yeah? So we can select data in order to what we call keep track of data changes. We can select metadata in order to keep track of metadata changes. Yeah? And then if you want to keep track of for all the rows, we use what? All option within the user, and then similarly we have different statuses here, like we have new row, modify or edited row, deleted row, replace all. Which means what? In case if you want to check only replace all option like who has done, then we can use this. Similarly for deleted, edited and new. But if irrespective of status, if you want to look at all the changes, irrespective whether it has been added a new row or modified existing row, deletion of existing row or replacing of existing rows. If you want to check all such functionalities, we are going to use this. Yeah. Now click on show button. After that, you could able to see list of what I call actions or tasks that we perform over here. Can you see here? Now what we did here, we need to here read from bottom to top. Remember, last is what? New row. So which means we added a new row like a diamond 1 diamond. Yes or no? Yeah. And then one more new row we added with a 1 1 1 1 2, and one more new row added with a 44 gold and gold. Right? Now edited in order to understand modification of existing data. What we did, we have used editing option or edit button through which we modified. Can you see here? Date and time for new rows is different from edit. So which means what? You will also have what was the last updated date and time for each row, so that you will get to know that when this particular row got modified. Then the reason, which means audit note, but that is an optional thing. If you want, we can supply this audit note, or else it is optional. Then what was modified, that you can see with golden color. Can you see here? Gold plot we did not touch, but we changed only CT column data from 44 to 4. So which means we can see what was the original data and what is the modified data. So which means what? We can have history of particular changes, so that we can keep track of who performed all the changes by using audit train. Plus, this is a one row only where we perform this particular change. In case if you want to do replace all, can you see here? Which means what? Performing bulk functionality. If you have done it, you can also see that over here. And apart from that, in case if you want to see only edited row, then select that and show it. There is only one row where we have done this editing activity. Yeah? And similarly, you can also see user level, which means which user has done this modification or this addition or whatever. So, and from date to date, within this particular what I call date range, whatever the changes that has been done, all of them will be tracked by using audit train. And type of what I call is it going to be the data or metadata? Type, which means we have two parts, right? Meta and data. So now we are focusing on data part, which means creation of a new record, modification of existing record, and deletion of existing record, right? Or replace all or whatever. Now we have metadata, which will be used to keep track of what I call who created metadata, modified metadata, deleted metadata. Can you see here where we have create reference table, yeah, with the user, this particular user, and update date and time, and then note, which means system note. This is audit note. Remember, system note is different from audit note. System note is what? The reference table name. And audit note is what? For every change, we add a what we call audit note, right? That is a note, is audit note. And the bottom, can you see here? Status counts. Create table, how many times it has been done, and then how many columns have been added, how many columns have been deleted, which is the new columns, and then how many columns renamed, statistics, and what are the valid, any valid column change. In this case we have CT is a valid column, right? And then total metadata updates, there is only one, yeah, which means complete statistics with respect to metadata will be seen in the bottom with respect to status counts, which means we have what we call different tasks like a creation, addition, deletion, renaming the column, valid column change, and total metadata. We have different properties, and for each property we can look at what I call status information here. Yeah? So that is what will be seen over here. Yeah? So then the next is what we have, properties, where you will see what is the reference table name, under which location, what is a valid column, when it was created, who created, what was the last modified date and time, and who modified it, and what was the connection name which we have used in order to create this particular reference data. Remember, we can have n number of connections, right, which means database connections. Out of them, which connection that we have used in order to create this particular reference data. Now on the right side, we can see what columns or metadata. Out of them, you will have normal columns which include CT1 and CT2, and then valid column which is what? CT. So which means what? This is just like a what it called the properties, like what we have configured as part of this particular reference table. Yeah? Now, once we do that, we can get into what I call this projects, where we can see like where this particular reference table appears. On the reference table category, where we can see the reference table. Yeah? And after that, in case if you have just closed it, you can just double click on that so that we can see like what kind of metadata and data that we have within this particular reference table. Yeah? This is a one way through which we can create the reference data from scratch. Remember. Yeah? So once we understand like how to create a reference data by using a reference table editor, next step is going to be what? We need to start using another way to create a reference data, again by using same button, which is new reference table. Then select what I call import a flat file, which means assuming that the customer or end user or business users, in case if they are going to send what I call reference data in the form of what I call flat file, then how are we going to what I call create the reference data in case if we get reference data in the form of flat file. Yeah? Select import a flat file. So this is straightforward. So browse to a location where we have this particular flat file. Let us say orders, which is going to be the reference data. In that case, select that particular file and say open, get it uploaded so that we can start what I call navigating through with other options over here. Yeah. So I'll just put here ref table, yeah, with what I call flat file option, right? Yeah. And code page, we can see default code page, and then bottom you will see the data of what we have in this particular file, which is orders.csv. And then click on next, where you will see delimiters. Yeah, which means you can select one of them depending upon the kind of data that you get from the source, and then the column names that we are going to use, which means what we are going to, in case if we have the first line as a header, then select import from first line or else no. Yeah? So let it get loaded. After that we can get into the next step. Yeah. Now you can see, right, preview data for each column. So if we select this, import first line as a header, then first line will be treated as header, rest will be data. Now click on next. Here you can see the top we have what this column attributes, the bottom you will see the data. Header is what? Order ID, customer ID, company. This is what we call header part. And then say finish. No? So this is what we can see, or we need to follow the step-by-step instructions in order to create the reference data in case if you get the reference data in the form of what we call flat file. Yeah? So let it get loaded. Yeah? Now we can see here, right? This is just a preview for this particular input data, and once we look at it, in case if you want to perform any additions or modifications or deletions or whatever, right, we can perform again by using these buttons, which is find and replace, editing metadata, editing table, adding a new row, editing a row, deletion of row. So we have what I call all the buttons which will be used to perform any bulk operation. For example, new row, order ID and customer ID and company, yeah, and company address, like whatever you want. We can just add it and say save. So this row got added. Yeah. Likewise, we can add any number of what I call rows. Apart from that, in case if you want to perform some bulk changes, let us say CA with some other value, yeah? CA with let us say CA1, yeah? Or something else, then perform bulk. Before that, highlight. You can see here there are some records where we have CA, right? If you want to perform replace all option, so we can do that and then say okay, which means this is how we can perform bulk operation for the existing reference data. So this anyway need to be done by analyst or business analyst or information analyst. Similarly, modification which we discussed, let's select any row, modify, or select this particular row, click on this edit row button where you can see this. Yeah? So that's all we have